folks feel like we need to use a microphone? Will people hear me? Okay. So how many people were here on July 24th? How many people were not here? Okay, well, let's do a quick refresh. I'm Paul Costello. I'm the Executive Director of the Council on Rural Development. We're charged by the Federal Farm Bill to help coordinate federal and state policy, whatever that means. We don't have any federal money to do it. We kind of make up our program as we go. We have a structure that brings together federal agency heads in Vermont, half the governor's cabinet of either party. We don't really care if the governor's a Republican or a Democrat. Nonprofit leaders from across the state, business leaders, local leaders, and then the heads of each congressional office. So in a way, we're a hub in Montpelier that looks at rural policy, what rural communities need. But fundamental to that is our position that Montpelier doesn't know what's good for rural Vermont communities, and don't wait for the federal government to set direction for rural Vermont. It's all about local leadership. And so we go to communities, learn from them, and add up for the public policy side. But on the local side, we're the most experienced community facilitating organization in Vermont. We're all over the place, from places like Bennington and Rutland to Richford, Island Pond, small towns, and some of our cities that are looking to their future. Our agenda is one of asking questions, asking what we stand for, what's fundamental to our place and our opportunities. What are the things that if we did, we would drive for a stronger future? We've been doing this work for more than 20 years. Over time, we've found particular problems or particular directions that we've ended up localizing around. One of them was broadband, how communities could work to advance broadband. Another one was the idea of the creative economy, how the arts and cultural institutions that are so formative of our identity can be used to leverage the future of our economies, attracting next generation people, making our towns more dynamic places to live. So we've done facilitation around that. Today we're working based on some work that a number of people put together on looking at the climate. And instead of looking at the climate situation that we face in our communities, nationally, globally, as something to battle over, we in Vermont look at how do we, what's our theory of change around climate change? How do we reverse climate change? And to us, the intersection between the environment and humanity is our economy. So we're not going to throw our economy out. We're going to look to how do we develop an economy that actually answers the problems of climate change. Businesses make money by solving problems. So how do we actualize and strengthen businesses that answer climate as a way to both spur the future prosperity of our place, to attract youth and entrepreneurship, to strengthen our communities, and basically to drive Vermont forward in line with our brand, the green idea of Vermont. And in this way, we build a bridge that isn't political or ideological. It's about how we work together. And that's been very successful in Montpelier, and it's also been successful with the communities we work with. And we have some work that we're doing around public policy, but we're also bringing this conversation to communities when asked and invited. And we've been invited by the select board of your town to manage a process that lets people consider these issues, set some priorities for action, and move forward. And so John Kopans is the program director. In applying for this program, we were applying for something that's highly competitive, and the basic thing that you get, besides the structure and the resources and connections we can bring, is that John works for you and your community over the course of the next year to help you implement the goals and directions that you set for yourselves. So I'll turn it over to John, and you're going to have a lot of fun, and you're going to get a lot of great stuff done.
Thank you, Paul, and it's nice to be here in Dorset. You know, we had the opportunity before coming here to set up. Your town manager drove us around a little bit. Not that we hadn't been around the community, but it was really nice to get to see some other nooks and crannies of this beautiful place that you all live in. Before I say a few things, I actually want to invite up Ellen Maloney and Jim Salzgiver. As Paul said, we were invited into Dorset to do this work, and really the Town Energy Committee, that to pay you all a compliment, is one of the best in the state in terms of the work that it has done and the progress that you all have made, was really a lead in that. So I just want to invite Jim and Ellen up to quickly say a welcome here. So you two come on up.
Our favorite thing, public speaking.
Yeah, right. Well, first of all, thanks. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being part of a very, I think, interesting process. It's really gratifying to see you all. Last time I was so excited I couldn't explain myself. No, it really is. It's really exciting to see this much community participation. And we'll have more tonight based on the last time. But I wanted to say to you that I think what's coming out of this is that you are participating in changes to the town, positive changes, creative changes to the town's future. And your being here tonight is going to make a big difference in what Dorset actually does and looks like. And I don't think there's anything that is probably more important than doing that. So I'm especially grateful for all of you coming and participating. And I know you'll participate. So.
Good. We also definitely wanted to thank, thank everybody who came on July 24th to the meeting. We had great sessions, a lot of great stuff came out of it. You know, one thing to note is they're not here today, but notes from that session, really fabulous notes, are available on the DT Rural website. You look for model communities and for the Dorset Tomorrow program, and there's like 6-8 pages of notes from those sessions that are definitely worth a read. They captured very well what the input from the community, plus the input. We had about 100 community members, plus we had about 17 people from all the partners of BCRD, and they made comments as well. So it's definitely worth a visit, spending some time with that document. But we definitely wanted to thank BCRD. BCRD is, as Paul said, they know what they're doing, and John Copons and Paul Costello bringing their team to the last session plus all the other experts they brought on board. It's a fabulous resource for this town. It's going to be a resource for the rest of the year, so we really should take advantage of it. One of the things I wanted to, it's important, I think, for a town to have community discussions on somewhat of a regular basis. I think this is a wonderful opportunity, but one of the things I want to point out, this is a wonderful opportunity that will last through the rest of the year, give us other opportunities to engage with each other over the rest of the course of the year. And I encourage all of you folks to let everybody, especially if you like tonight, you enjoy tonight, let people know about it, and for more people to get engaged. Engaging the public is really important for a town to understand. As a member of the select board, for us to understand where the town is and what they're really interested in. And it's a difficult thing to do. I think we need to do it more often, and we need to attract people and have people used to giving their opinions and giving their thoughts to the town as to what's important. So, yeah, please.
Along those lines, I was really thinking when John was saying that after the end of the year, people will continue these responsibilities to us. I was going to suggest that we have another forum at the end of the year to see how we've done and redirect ourselves and put a little gas in our tanks. And, well, no, that's the wrong analogy. Plug in. Anyway, I made my gas.
So I appreciate you all being here tonight.
Since we have the microphone, it might be helpful if...
Our folks, I'm happy to use that.
Thank you.
And how is that? Is that okay for folks? Is that better? All right. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of what this model communities process that we're calling Dorset Tomorrow is, and then we're going to really get into the conversation. This tonight is really about hearing from you all, so let me go quickly with that. So as we've described, a little less than a month ago, we gathered at the Dorset School for a series of forums on 4 different topics. Those were brainstorming sessions. A lot of ideas came out of those sessions. You all talked about the assets, the challenges in the community, and then really what are some ideas about moving Dorset forward. I took all of those ideas and then sort of distilled it down. And you've got 2 sheets in your hand. You've got a green sheet and a yellow sheet. And the way that we're going to structure tonight, just to get to our agenda for this evening, is tonight is actually about 3 things. The first thing we're going to do tonight, Paul is going to facilitate a little bit of what we call a visioning session. And we're doing this in part because of what we heard a month ago, which is a sense that Dorset could use a little bit of a unifying vision as a community. So what Paul will do is facilitate a session where we invite you all to describe in a sentence what your vision is, and I'll take notes on that. So that's what we're going to do for the first 25 minutes. Then we're going to get to these action ideas that you've got in front of you. And we're really breaking that into 2 sections tonight. The first conversation is around energy and transportation in Dorset. And what you will see is a whole bunch of ideas related to energy and a whole bunch of ideas related to transportation. Those are written up, as you can see on the wall there. So we're going to have a conversation about those, and then we're going to give you all some stickers, some dot stickers, 2 orange and 2 blue, and you are going to use those to express some preference for those priorities. We are then going to shift gears a little bit and talk about another set of ideas that you have for the future of Dorset. And I would sort of call this category the everything else category. It's about working lands, it's about housing, it's about recreation. So you see on that green sheet of paper 9 other ideas related to Dorset. So what we're going to come out of tonight is really 2 things. We are going to come out with some priorities in relation to energy and transportation, and those are really advisory as task forces come together to work on those 2 issues, right? This will give them some sense of what you all think are important related to those 2 topics. But the truth is, when you're talking about energy and when you're talking about transportation, that group's going to have to do a little bit of work and a little bit of analysis as they really narrow down their focus. So I would put that first round in the more advisory category. The second round of voting on the green, the community sort of ideas, is really where you are deciding 2 additional task forces that are going to come together as part of this Dorset Tomorrow process, right? So do you think that this is about building unity in the community, as you'll see one of those action ideas? Is this about increasing affordable housing? Is this about recreation? We will use sort of your prioritization to ultimately decide tonight what those 2 other priorities are for this process. And the last step tonight, and in many ways the most important one is, while I am working with Dorset for the next year, if I'm working alone, I'm not going to get a whole lot done, right? Like the reality is it's a partnership with you all in the community. So the last step is, on that table out there, there are going to be sign-up sheets for an energy task force, a transportation task force, and 2 other task forces depending on the decisions you make tonight. And so as you think about what's important for Dorset, part of what you're thinking about is also what am I interested in rolling up my sleeves and working on for this community? Because this really is a conversation not about what someone else is doing on behalf of Dorset, but what you all and what we all are doing together. Let me pause there quickly. You know, we have a lot to get through tonight, right? This is a pretty packed agenda, and we sort of, I think, waited for folks to gather, so we started a little bit late. But I do want to make sure that anybody, if there's any process-related questions, because I'm moving fast here, I want to field those before we move on to the visioning session. Oh, let me make one last point in the process, which is, and we just settled this today, a month from now, Monday, September 23rd, a little more than a month from now, we will gather again for sort of the last big convening of the Dorset Tomorrow process. And that last step will be basically the first meeting, first meeting of the task forces. And we will facilitate those meetings, and we will also bring back to Dorset a resource team of partners, right? We haven't talked much about that, but Efficiency Vermont is a core partner in this work. Maybe V-Trans, depending on if you're focused on, or Local Motion if you're thinking about biking and walking, or NOFA if we're talking about working lands, or the Farm to Table Network, right? All of those Vermont Land Trusts. Depending on what you decide on for priorities, we will bring a resource team back on September 23rd. And the goal for that evening will be really to write action plans for those task forces. Okay, so mark your calendar and just know that and then what will happen is the work will really fall to those task forces with my support to move things forward. I'm doing a lot of talking and I'm doing it fast. Are there any questions or before I hand the mic back to Paul? Yeah, go for it.
Just review the distillation process, taking dozens and dozens, and then distilling it to this. What was in your head? What variables would you consider to get here?
I appreciate that. First thing I did is I just read everything, right? We had note takers basically taking verbatim notes, and I appreciate, you know, that some of you read those notes. So I read everything to just sort of process. What are those assets? What are those challenges? And then actually, and this is just the way I work, I put each distinct idea into a spreadsheet, right? Because it's nice to sort things, categorize a little bit, and then in doing that, you start to sort it and you identify some common themes. We call it a cluster analysis, right? And you really start to group things. And so the idea is basically every distinct idea that came up can track to one of these general ideas that you have in front of you. I'm not perfect, right? And part of what we're going to ask as we talk about these things is, what did we miss? And maybe it's something that I missed in looking at the notes, or frankly, maybe you weren't at that first round and you've got something you want on the wall. Both of those scenarios are okay. Yep. Anything else before I hand this back to Paul? All right. Thank you.
So we have to move fast. We've got a lot of work to do tonight. So here's the thing. We worked with Woodstock, which spent a year thinking about its identity and its vision for the future. And at the end of that year, they said, you know, we really don't want to talk about our vision anymore. We want to work on agriculture. And so, you know, you can spend a lot of time navel gazing, and you may want to do a lot more than we're going to do tonight. But one of the things that we found is a really interesting trick is to ask people in a room like this, what's a sentence that you would want to have in a vision statement for the future of your community? Now, this is a session around the climate economy, but you can say anything you want, right? And what we'll do with that, John's going to take as detailed a note as he can on what you say, and we're going to turn it into a ballot. And in a month, we'll bring that ballot back to you, and we'll also put it online so that anyone in town who wants to check through that ballot can do so. But basically, you'll be able to say, I agree with this one. I don't really think this one's necessary. Some of them may be really pertinent, really important, and connect to your heart. Some of them may be, I'm okay to have it in there. And some of them may be, I really don't like this one. In Montgomery, where we were recently, this one guy got up and said, I think I have a vision for the future where we have a collective pot farm and everyone gets to grow 2 plants, but we guard it together. and everyone kind of liked the idea and laughed, but it didn't make it into the farm division. It was more of an individual idea, right? So this takes ideas from the general and it polishes them up into a place that are kind of the core of what people value. So the thing I would say about a vision statement is you're not saying something's true today, but you're making a sentence that's kind of a declarative, fact-based sentence about what you'd like to see 20 years from now. Like I would love to see our town be a wonderful place for children and that we attract families with children, you know, that kind of thing. So who would like to start with a sentence about your vision for the future of Dorset? Sir.
I just moved to Dorset, so from Manchester, which of course is a very, very different town. And the thing that, well, among many aspects, what appeals to me about Dorset and what I think is most important, with all due respect to energy and transportation, is preserving Dorset's rural, non-commercial, small town historical value as a community.
So the line that we would preserve in this statement is Dorset is a blank, blank, blank. Who else has one that they'd like to share? Yes, ma'am. I'll hold it.
Okay. It's very succinct. It's only 6 words. Dorset is forward-thinking, self-sufficient, and welcoming to everyone.
Thank you very much. Someone else have one? I'm just like a therapist. I get paid by the hour. I can stand. Sir.
When we're all done with this, I hope we'll be able to say that Dorset is a vibrant, innovative, and resilient community that shows other communities how we can fight climate change.
Great. Thank you. Other aspects of a vision for the future of Dorset. Yes.
I would like to see Dorset be a place where young people want to come to and grow food, be with community, raise families, and be able to have a viable business or lifestyle.
Great. Thank you. Other statements that you'd want to have in a vision statement for the future of Dorset? Yes, ma'am.
It takes a village to raise children. Dorset is one good village.
Oh, that's very nice. I mean, I'm not saying that because that would be an editorial comment. Yes, other sentences that you think could fit in here. Sir.
Dorset is a smart, connected community that respects the environment, attracts families, and looks forward to the future.
Good, thanks. Other statements that could be in there. Are there other aspects of life?
Dorset is a community that takes care of all of its residents, both part-time and full-time.
Thank you. Other statements that should be considered in a Dorset vision statement. Any other aspects of the community or its life that should be mentioned as you look to 20 years from now? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see our town be a place where all socio and economic people can find a place to live and work within the area.
Thank you. Other ideas towards a vision? Yes, sir.
I'd like to see our school be a central focus and a real asset, not only for kids and families growing up, but for folks of all ages.
Thank you. Other folks have points of vision. Schools, resilience, sustainable, young families. Yes?
World-class outdoor recreational destination.
That Dorset would be a world-class outdoor recreation destination.
And world-class land stewardship.
With world-class land stewardship. Okay. Other parts of a vision for the future of Dorset. There's something missing. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not actually a Dorset resident.
I see Dorset as an important spoke and a hub of the area around it that provides for everybody who lives here and is coming up with resilient solutions for climate change.
Thank you. Other folks have points of vision they want to share? Sir.
So just as a part of the continuation, the last meeting, the word beauty came up dozens of times. So if there could be an emphasis on beauty, whatever Dorset does, I think that will maintain other processes.
So Dorset maintains,
Seeks beauty in everything it does.
say it again?
Dorset seeks beauty in everything it does.
Great. Thank you. Other points of vision that should be in this statement? Yes, ma'am.
For Dorset to have a sense of community that unites both sides of the mountain.
Thank you. Other aspects of the community in terms of its character, land, people that ought to be part of the vision for the future? Yes, sir.
My neighbor here was expressing something that I have also felt. In terms of the diversity of our community, we would hope that Dorset wouldn't be so completely white.
Is there a, like, that's sort of like, if you're going to put it in the vision statement, should you say Dorset is welcome? Say it.
Dorset is welcoming to all people of America, not just the lily whites.
Including diversity in a variety of ways, including racial diversity.
Okay, great. I think that may need a little editing, but you've got a clear idea there. Anything else? And we won't edit much. We won't change content, believe me. Anything else that's missing from this? We got bridging the two parts of town. We've got diversity. We've got beauty. We've got a little bit on agriculture. Sir.
Dorset encompasses a large expanse of forest land that provides multiple forest values.
Great. Healthy and productive forest. Great. I'm about to take your hat, sir. Okay, so is there anything else? Is there any other big value that people in Dorset have that ought to be marked in this statement?
Dorset has a requirement that there is water for everyone.
Dorset has a requirement that there's water for everyone. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
That Dorset maintain and increase its sense of community or responsibility to each other.
Dorset maintains and strengthens its
Its sense of community and responsibility to each other.
Sense of community and responsibility to one another. Anything else that's essential to a vision statement for what you would want to work for 20 years? That you would want this community to be in 20 years?
Dorset is a place where we can grow food in whatever way that means. But we have beautiful land here to grow food.
Great. Thank you. Sir?
And mine kind of feeds off of that, if you don't mind my saying so. Dorset supports a food and farm network that feeds and nourishes our community.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Dorset is a great example of energy efficient new housing.
Okay. Anyone who hasn't spoken yet that has an idea that they haven't broached? Anyone at all then with a last idea that really ought to be on this list as we think towards the future? Are there any major areas that you haven't touched when you think about a vision? Yes.
Yes, I would be remiss as we're sitting at Long Trail that supports strong educational opportunities for its children.
Thank you. Tim?
Yes, Dorset retains or figures out how to retain the character of the town while supporting the development of economic opportunities for residents and businesses.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Dorset is the model for maintaining a connection for our aging population.
Everyone hear that? There's a lot of depth to what you're saying. Is there anything missing? Okay? So this will go on a sheet, and you'll get to judge which ones of these actually fit for you, and it'll be really interesting to see where it comes out. But we find that these things, because they're honed by that vote, they tend to ring with sort of an authenticity and a consensus that this is some of what we stand for. May not be perfect, may not be the Gettysburg Address, but it's going to be useful. So I'm going to turn it over. We're 6:50, 7:10, we're at 7:12 or 7:13, so we're a little off track. But John's going to work on this next stage of stuff. Right?
Thank you, Paul. All right, so as I described before, we are now at a point in the agenda where we're going to review and then discuss some ideas around energy and around transportation. And the first step in this is that I'm going to ask you all as a group to read aloud each of these ideas. And we just find it's helpful to sort of listen, hear them, and reflect a little bit on them. So we can do it by a show of hands. Sometimes communities get really efficient and they just start going down the line. What you read doesn't mean it's something you support. It's just helpful to have a community reading of these ideas. So, and yes, we are looking at the yellow sheet. Transportation and energy, sorry, not the green one. I should have said that at the front end. So any volunteers to do some reading, or can I start somewhere with this process?
Improve building codes and building owners support.
Keep going.
Okay. Engage fuel dealers.
Oh,
The whole thing. Oh my gosh. All right. The town of Dorset can play a role in making, I can't see, in making sure that the new buildings and additions and improvements meet or exceed Dorset's building energy codes, and that any new construction is solar ready. The towns can also ensure that anyone building or improving a home or other building has access to all available expertise and resources to meet these standards, and the task force could work with the town to implement strategies that put this idea into practice.
Engage fuel dealers to engage their customers. Fuel dealers often have long-standing relationships with their customers and are well-positioned to provide those customers with additional energy services. As more Dorset residents transition to new technologies and heating fuels, these businesses could develop their role in assisting with the transition and providing associated services. The task force could actively engage existing fuel dealers with the goal of helping them to expand into this new business area.
Engage the public through a campaign of workshops and communications. Because Dorset's carbon emissions and energy expenses are the result of many decisions made by homeowners, renters, businesses, organizations, and the town, a massive effort to educate and promote energy alternatives is necessary to help facilitate greater energy efficiency, renewable energy generation, and reduced carbon emissions. The task force could design and implement an education and promotion campaign, including workshops and other events, with the goal of reaching residents and visitors and helping to inform their choices about energy use.
Develop hydroelectric generation. Vermont is a place that is rich in rivers and streams, and Dorset is no exception. Small hydroelectric generation represents a renewable option for generating a steady supply of local electricity. The task force should explore potential hydropower sites in the area with the goal of siting and building a new generation facility.
Development community solar. As the cost of solar has steadily dropped, more Vermonters have made the investment to generate their own electricity and secure long-term and stable electric rates. Not all Vermonters live in places suitable for solar. The task force could work to develop one or more community solar projects that enable more members of the Dorset community to partake. The project could be structured specifically to enable low-income households to participate and could also include the municipality and the Dorset School.
Combine renewable generation and storage to create a microgrid. The ability to insulate a small area of the electric grid, possibly including an emergency shelter, from a larger power supply disruption will be increasingly important as we face an increase in extreme weather events resulting from climate change. Microgrids combine renewable energy generation and storage to create grid resilience during an outage while also providing valuable functions during other times. This task force could work with partners to create one or more microgrid to serve Dorset.
Increase home weatherization. The Dorset Energy Committee, in collaboration with partners, has done an excellent job in promoting home weatherization, but there's still more work to be done. The task force could focus on assisting more homeowners with the process of insulating their homes. This effort would include utility partnerships and cultivation of appropriate contractors to perform the work. An expanded weatherization incentive from Efficiency Vermont would be a key opportunity to tout. There could also be a role for free home energy visits from Efficiency Vermont.
Tackle school and municipal energy usage. The town of Dorset and area schools have made significant strides forward in reducing energy use and generating their own electricity. Because all area property tax payers carry some of this burden, the benefits of these efforts flow to all. There is always more to be done, both in terms of heating, electricity, and transportation fuels. The task force could work actively with both the municipality and area schools to document energy usage and to devise and implement strategies to transition away from fossil fuels and bring down costs.
Transportation. Make Dorset better for walking and biking. The Transportation Task Force could focus on making Dorset a more enticing place for walking and biking. Tactics could include improving physical infrastructure, including bike paths and sidewalks, building community awareness among walkers, bikers, and drivers alike, promoting e-bikes as an exciting new alternative, and working directly with the schools to develop and promote safe routes.
Promote electric vehicles and build more charging infrastructure. The task force could work to make Dorset a great place for owners of electric vehicles, EVs, both residents and visitors, and to actively promote EVs as a way to save money and reduce emissions. The group would work to increase the availability of public EV charging stations to serve locals and visitors alike, while also promoting EVs through events, workshops, and other communications activities.
Deploy a public campaign to inform transportation choices. The way we meet our current transportation needs requires significant expense and results in significant carbon emissions. At the same time, changing the way we get around requires a mix of improved options and infrastructure combined with a shift in culture and individual choices. The task force will focus on a community-wide campaign with messaging and communications designed to raise awareness, promote different options, and change behavior. Transformation begins with small steps.
Build more park and ride options. Ride sharing and public transit require convenient places to park. This task force should catalog existing options for park and ride and work to fill in gaps.
Bring back rail service. Trains are both a fuel-efficient and enticing way to get around. The task force should work to bring rail service back to Dorset.
Develop ride-sharing options. Uber and Lyft are transforming transportation in urban areas of the country with both upsides and downsides. The task force could work to develop a flexible rural on-demand transportation alternative. This could include developing a tool or system that facilitates the sharing of rides to fill seats in available vehicles. There also could be shared vehicle with volunteer or paid drivers. Trips to and from Manchester for various shopping and services, and the trip to and from the airport in Albany warrant special focus for this effort.
Improve school transportation. Transportation to and from Dorset area schools represents an important opportunity and expense. Informing the choices of students and their families also has the potential for long-term impact. The task force could work to catalog all the transportation choices happening and then to deploy strategies to increase bus ridership, walking and biking, and carpooling. An effort could also be made to increase coordination between the schools and their transportation system schedules. Finally, this group could evaluate the potential of using school buses for additional community transportation needs.
Last one. Who wants to read? Put someone up for it?
Utilize and improve transit services. Many workers commute into Dorset each day from the north, south, and west. Many also travel from Dorset in those directions. While there are some existing bus services, there could be more. There also could be more ridership. The task force will work to actively promote existing transit resources and to strategize with local providers about how to provide more comprehensive service.
Great. Thank you, everybody. All right. So I guess the first question for you all across these two topics, we're going to break this really into two pieces. One, is there anything missing from this list that you'd like added? And then really, most of this time before we give you stickers and we dot vote is do some championing. What do you think is a good idea on this list and why? This is your moment to deploy your persuasion to your community about what you think could work here in Dorset. So, is there anything missing?
John, I'm wondering if we could combine these. I can see a public campaign to inform transportation choices joined with developing ride-sharing options and utilizing and improving transit services. Is there some way that those could be looked at as one effort?
Here's the good news on that front. First of all, good suggestion. Remember with this that this is really to give that task force some sense of priorities of this group, right? So I think it's pretty reasonable to expect that task force when they get together to do exactly what you're talking about, which is, hey, well, A, what's most important to people, and how do these things fit together? You're not going to do any of these things without some sort of community campaign as an example. So what this really is an opportunity to identify some priorities that you think are most important for that group then to work through. Does that make sense?
Yes, but does it mean we can use one dot for two things together, or do we get two dots?
Well, you're going to get 2 dots for energy priorities and 2 dots for transportation priorities. So that's still going to force you to make some choices. But those will inform the work of that group. Other suggestions or other gaps before we do some championing? Is there anything that's missing from this list? All right. What do you think could work in Dorset on this list? Where do you think this is really a time, and something that BCRD really strives for is sort of a positive conversation about what you think can work and what you think is a good opportunity. And so that's for the next, let's say, 5 or 10 minutes. It would be great to hear from you all. What do you think? And I guess I would think about it in a couple of different ways. You all, transportation and energy. We all use transportation, we all use energy. So one question to you all is, what might you be interested in participating yourself in terms of this list? That's one question. What do you think is good for Dorset as a whole? But then a third question is, if a transportation task force was going to work on X, like electric vehicles, that might entice me to join that task force and really roll up my sleeves and get to work, right? So be thinking across all of those categories, and I'll just be quiet now. Any reactions, thoughts? Champion.
I think an easy work would be for Dorset School, Long Trail School, and all of the public buildings in Dorset to have solar panels on all of them. It would be easy to do.
Easy to do. Solar on the public buildings, schools and public buildings, right?
And I would piggyback with that and on the one that we talked about, combining renewable generation and storage to create microgrids. It's an opportunity for each of those community buildings, municipal buildings, to have solar, and if you include storage, then you have resiliency. When storms happen, there's a place for, if people are without power for a week or 2 weeks, they have an emergency shelter, so it's an opportunity for the community.
Yeah.
I think it's important to preserve the historic district in Dorset. So I haven't heard anybody talking about that, but I think that's an important piece to maintain.
Dovetailing off of that, but also combining some of the comments from the vision, this is one layer lower, but I don't recall in the vision people saying transportation, maybe energy was mentioned. We have to be careful that some of these items here don't contradict some of the vision statements, and during this process figure out which one prevails in terms of what we want the community to be.
And I think it's always important to note that this sets the table. But the success of any task force and any work in any community, including Dorset, is going to involve a significant amount of public conversation, right? Nothing is going to land without getting more people into the conversation and really engaging. So, but well taken.
I just sort of thought of this. I wasn't actually super excited about the like the education and engagement ones, but there's a lot of people with wood stoves and boilers and the outdoor wood furnaces and things that burn wet wood that just like smolders and smokes, and it's like this obvious, just horrible way of burning this amazing resource that we have. And so I actually do think like it sort of goes with using fuel efficiently around here, but education around like drying and storing and burning wood properly here, since we have so much wood here as a resource. I know that's a little bit of a specific idea, but I wanted to get it in there.
So we could actually add that, because I think that's sort of specific and unique enough, right, that it's worth throwing that on the wall as well. So I think Paul will write that up. That'll be another thing in the energy category that you may want to prioritize. And just to say it back, basically deploying a community campaign around wood burning to ensure we're using that resource as efficiently and cleanly as possible. Is that, got it? Super. Coming your way.
As we look to the future, I think the first one, improving building codes and building that sort of owner support, will be very important. A lot of builders and contractors around here need to get up to speed on that as well.
Thank you. I'm looking at the clock. Other, yeah, great.
Does anyone know if we have geothermal in any of the buildings here, like in the schools and the municipal buildings? The geothermal? Because that might be an option too for temperature. The other thing I have a question, another question. Okay, what is Dorset's rate or measurement for carbon emissions? Have we ever had a test through our town? And if so, what is it? Where are we? Where do we stand before we go to all these changes and ideas and so forth? So.
A good question. Yeah, let me go to Rob because I see him waiting here.
On the, just on the couple of questions on geothermal, no, we do have solar on like the Dorset school, but on, what's that? In the town garage. On the, understanding what Dorset's, energy usage is. Actually, in the town plan, we have a compliant energy plan as a part of the town plan, so there's fabulous information on Dorset's energy usage in there.
And I'm going to vote for two. The first one's going to be making Dorset better for walking and biking. I think that's just a really simple, easy way to get people out of cars and using less fuel. And then the second would be the ride-share options, because everybody seems to drive to Manchester for the grocery store almost every day.
Thank you. I saw some other hands. Any other hands? This is your chance, right? You're going to get 2 dots for each category, but your ability to persuade can influence the dots of others.
I don't want to sound snarky here, but quite a few of the questions the Dorset Energy has done some work on already. And so I had suggested in our prior session, engage the public through a campaign of workshops and communications. And what I meant by that was a lot of the discussion on these various items, many people just don't know how to do what you're trying to go after. So Rob talked about getting out of the car, working on a more walking-friendly village, going solar. Who do you talk to? How do you do it? What things have been done in our school, both for agriculture and efficiency. A lot of these things have been worked on, and I just thought that maybe through 4 or 5 targeted sessions, people could attend through the winter, that they could get up to speed and then actually do some of these things. I think there's a lot of cases you just don't know where to start. And I'm kind of sensing it through some of the questions.
Yep.
It occurs to me, I'm a huge fan of marketing and communications and engaging people that way. If this inventory was created, we could also maybe have some of our students help put together a public service announcement campaign. We don't have billboards in Vermont, but we all have laptops. And there might be a really interesting way that some of the communications and outreach and information could also not necessarily mean having to go to a meeting to do it, but we could figure out ways to deploy it to folks that way.
Just a quick follow-up and perhaps an invitation to the lady who talked about the wood burning. Could this be folded into your desire to educate, engage the public through campaign workshops and communications, so we can take that one and implant it in this particular?
Yes, and I think in a way Mara suggested that at the beginning, and I think it'll be helpful if you think about a task force coming together, knowing that there's strong interest around efficient wood burning would be helpful as they think about what else to prioritize. So it's helpful to separate it out, but it certainly could be incorporated in as they do their work. You guys are just waiting for me to trip over this cord, aren't you?
I'd just like to offer a thought that I think might be missing from the Make Dorset Better for Walking and Biking, and that is that the community schools are not very accessible for students to walk or ride to. I only live less than 2 miles from a Dorset school, and it's terrifying for me to think about my young daughter riding her bike to Dorset school. And I would love to see that happen.
You can add that later.
One thing that strikes me as missing from the energy aspect are trees. There are parts of East Dorset certainly that need more trees, more plantings, provide shade, and if we're going to talk about walking, we're going to desperately need that.
And you'll see in the next set of ideas around more sort of community focus, some forest land and focused on the natural lands as well. I'm not sure how well that'll capture that. Are there other comments, suggestions? All right. So here's how we're going to do this. You will see on the wall there, on the left side, 3 sheets with the same energy ideas that you've got on your, at the beginning there, with the one added at the bottom around wood heating. And then on the right, you will see transportation. In the envelopes that you're getting, you have 2 blue dots and 2 orange dots. Use your blue dots to prioritize the 2 transportation things that you think would be most worthwhile, and use your orange dots for the energy. You'll see energy is written in orange, and transportation is written in blue. So use your blue dots for transportation. Did you get? I got 4. I'll take 2 of those. That was some bad stuffing, I guess. So. Yeah, you should have been quiet. You know, one question we often get is, can you put both of your dots on one subject? And absolutely, if you feel strongly about it, put your both of your dots on one priority. So, bullet voting, yes, absolutely. You are free to bullet vote. Spread your dots or focus on, but again, blue for transportation, orange for energy.
hiding the box.
I'm hiding the box, aren't I?
Oh, yeah.
Empty envelopes. We'll take those. Thank you.
Oh, Jane got it.
We've got somebody going.
I'll get you those.
Oh, wait.
Good, here we go. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for doing that. Calling me out like that.
And I pass it over. But, you know, to Walt, but, somebody asked for a picture, and I sent back to Walt, but, you know, the negative thing, I definitely didn't want to. We lost the cats, and then there's a Lee Jones across the road, before they really. So it's just an awful for us. So I don't know
Yep, we'll take it all. Thank you.
One cat, lower away.
Let me, I just want to get it though, so.
It's very simple.
Let me decide where to write it on so I'm not going to lose it. This is where I'll write it. Go for it.
I have a small problem. Healthy and healing.
Healthy and healing?
Yeah.
Okay. And we would say sort of
nothing else.
Dorset is healthy and...
Because hopefully. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Hopefully it'll turn out the way we want it.
John, do you think that's too crowded?
No, it's fine.
And we're, yeah. You know, there's a woman working on she's and it's really focused on like teaching people how to like from use the but like when I had a wood stove, you just lift them like that. Like there's all these techniques.
Yes. Yep.
Efficient.
Recycle those. Yep.
Yeah.
Get started.
Be careful. Be careful.
Hang on.
Thanks, Ken. You were quick. Good job.
So John is passing around a sign-in sheet just so that we're able to track who came tonight.
Long time no see.
But let's come back and let's look at where we went. So you remember this first round of voting was to give your advice to people who get on these two task forces in terms of what the community thinks is most important in the energy and in the transportation arena. Someone fixing the system at the end. So when you look at the energy side, the clear priorities are to engage the public through a campaign of workshops and communications, really mutual education, learning about opportunities, the potential development of a community solar project or projects to support the future, and then thinking about how solar can connect to renewable generation, create a microgrid. Be fascinating to bring people from Green Mountain Power who talk about doing this, and might be a fascinating place for some mutual experimentation. Increasing home weatherization, a few smaller, but just remember that this committee's going to come together. They're going to have all this information. They basically have a bit of a starting point from the priorities from the community, but it's going to be a democratic process. They're going to look at what they can get done, what's most efficient, how they get the biggest bang for the buck of their time. On the transportation side, wow, make Dorset better for walking and biking. That's doable. It's a cornerstone priority, and it's got a massive vote supporting it, right? The next highest vote getter on this side is around promoting electrical vehicles. Could I ask everyone just to pay attention while we're doing this? Promote electrical vehicles and build more charging infrastructure. So sort of gearing up for that next wave of electric vehicles. And then deploying a campaign to inform transportation choices would be the next, which connects closely to this ride sharing. Building more park and rides and rail service and school transport didn't make it to the top priority, but as the committee's working forward on these things, there's going to be movement between them. And then finally, the utilize and improve transit services didn't get a ton of votes, but I think people have a sense that you concentrate here first. So from our point of view, great decisions. You know, this is a really good starting point for action. Now we're going to turn a corner. We've got the green sheets that have ideas for community revitalization initiatives. So we heard a lot last month that may not fit into transportation or energy generation categories, but may be important to the overall future health and well-being of the Dorset community as a whole. And so there's an opportunity to build another task force or two task forces based on the things that you think are most important in general for the community to do. You also are going to have the opportunity to inform the select board with things that you think are important, inform your town manager who's been great and has been active in this whole process. So we'd love to go through really quickly and read these general ideas and think which ones are most important for collective action by the community. So who would like to start by reading one of them? Thank you.
Build a network to strengthen and grow food and farming enterprises. Dorset is host to a great mix of farm and food producers and has a landscape suitable for a diversity of working lands activities. There is a great opportunity for collaboration amongst those involved in local food production, both in Dorset and in surrounding communities. A task force could come together with the mission of leading in the development of a regional food plan, increasing farm to school and farm to table activity, and sharing resources including marketing, processing, and transportation.
Thank you.
Increase affordable housing. With great schools, a beautiful natural landscape, and many places of employment, Dorset is an attractive place to live and raise a family. For low and middle income households, finding affordable homes to rent or own in Dorset is a challenge. A task force should work to increase the availability of affordable housing choices in Dorset.
Thank you. The next one?
Attract more visitors with eco and agritourism. With wonderful accommodations, great outdoor recreation opportunities, cultural events, and a thriving horse show, Dorset is an appealing place for visitors. A task force could come together to market all of these assets and to better brand Dorset as a place to visit. These efforts could include a focus on eco and agritourism as emerging and forward-looking trends, and would also likely involve collaboration with surrounding towns.
Okay.
Attract new residents. A task force could come together to deploy strategies that would attract new residents with particular attention to increasing Dorset's racial and ethnic diversity. Recruiting remote workers could also be a focus of this group.
Thank you. The next one?
Increase recreational opportunities. A new task force could be created to promote existing recreational opportunities in Dorset and to create new ones. In addition to expanding and marketing outdoor recreation opportunities, an indoor recreation space and more facilities for children's play are among the needs that this group would work to fill.
This is a whole chapter. Build community unity. Dorset is one town with some existing divisions across geographic, socioeconomic, and seasonal boundaries. Building unity and a vision shared by those living in Dorset is key as the town plans for and builds a more vibrant future. A task force could come together to create a communication and organizational structure that would build greater unity across these divides and actively promote the progress of the community. The task force could help lead a community-wide visioning effort designed to bring all members of the community into the conversation. This group could also work to expand communication networks to all residents and to ensure that all potential areas of collaboration and the sharing of resources are maximized. This effort would be helpful as Dorset prepares to update its town plan and works to develop plans for the newly acquired Raptor Lane property.
Thanks. Someone in the next row willing to read?
Strengthen the two village centers. The central core of both East Dorset and Dorset are tremendously appealing with great history and sense of place. A task force could work actively to develop and implement plans that enable additional development to increase density in the village cores while also preserving the charm and aesthetic beauty of these two places. This group could also work to recruit businesses and other services to locate in Dorset as a way to grow the local economy and minimize transportation demands.
Thank you. The next one.
Put food and other waste to good use. Food waste and other compostable materials represent a significant contribution to carbon emissions. Capturing the nutrients and energy from these materials also represents an economic opportunity, particularly as Vermont continues to implement its universal recycling law. A task force could work to develop a private or public system to capture biodegradable waste and put it to efficient use. This group could also work to address other types of waste.
Thank you. Someone willing to read the last one? Sir.
Realize the benefits of Dorset's natural lands. A beautiful and diverse natural and working landscape is one of Dorset's greatest assets. How the private and public lands in Dorset are managed will have major carbon and economic impacts for Dorset's future. A task force could work to engage landowners about management practices, carbon offsets, and other strategies that serve to protect forest tracts, maximize carbon sequestration, preserve native ecosystems, and improve water quality. This task force could also work actively to develop systems to connect landowners with young farmers and entrepreneurs looking for land to start a working land enterprise.
Okay, so you'll notice there's a little overlap between these because there was overlap in the way that they laid out in the notes, and also that there were complementary ideas that emphasize one thing more than another. So you're really making choices between a core emphasis for a working group. But any core group that forms on any one of these is going to have all the rest of this material behind them. You'll get a report in the end that's going to include all the inputs that came from all the earlier sessions, from this session in terms of where the priorities were established, but also nothing's lost. All the best ideas of the community are kept. And in the democratic working forward of a task force, they can go back to different pieces that are most important to them over time. What we're trying to do now is to say, if you have two task forces, one on improving transportation and one on improving energy in the community, what's the third, or should there be even 4 task forces working in this community? And what would be the priority for community projects that would have the most power? Did we miss anything as a major idea that would have been on the table last month, or that wasn't said last month, that you think is crucial, that might be a huge project that would require a task force to move forward in this community? Have we missed anything that should be on the wall? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know that it should be a task force, but communication is the key to all of this.
Yeah. And that building community unity has lots of description of how that would really be a communications committee to build unity, because that theme was loud and clear last month. And it would look at structures to do that. How do you actually build communications unity and potentially unity around projects? And some towns have a nonprofit like Burke, where they had East Burke and West Burke, and they built One Burke as a nonprofit to unite their common efforts, raise money, put money into projects, but also raise that communications and partnership. We're not saying that's the way to go, because you'll need to think about what are the ways that you would articulate further on any one of these directions. But these are the directions that have come so far from the community. I'm not here a lot to say there's a lot of new and additional ideas. So what I want to say to you is, look at your agenda, and we've done this a lot. This is like the 100th community or something where we've done processes like that. And what you want to think about is, which ones of these are really doable? Which ones would have the most power of uniting the community and potentially making the community a better place to live for the next generation? Which ones can you be most successful with? Which will be the most fun? You know, you don't want to do something that you're going to hate doing and that you don't think is going to be successful. So which is going to be the most fun, unifying, enjoyable, and will build momentum and a sense of community direction and trajectory? Which is most important and most impactful? So I'd be glad of people to champion what you think is most important of those ideas before you go into the vote. So tell your neighbor, I'm in favor of this one because I think it's the most fundamental, or this is the one that's going to leverage the future. Who would like to start? Sir. Then maybe stand up and say your name.
I'm Connor. I was kind of listening to some of the vision statements and, you know, looking at kind of these community things. I was kind of thinking about my own experience in coming to Dorset, and, you know, I really believe that increasing affordable housing, attracting new residents, and then also sort of, you know, revisiting or championing what we have in terms of our natural landscape is really important for this community. I felt like, you know, my wife and I and our 3 kids chose Dorset specifically, but we found it really difficult to get access to this community. And it feels like in this state and in this community and in this county, we're trying to attract young people, we're trying to attract people who are going to be working for this community. You can't live in Dorset on a teacher's salary. You can't own a home in Dorset on a teacher's salary. We got very lucky, my wife and I, and we just happened to be able to do that, but I think we're far outside the norm. I just think as a way to kind of develop this community and to bring in new individuals who are interested in all the great things that we think of as our community, we just need to do a better job of kind of giving access to more individuals.
So housing.
Housing.
He's an English teacher, right? So he gave us a good overview. But I'm going to ask everyone to be a little briefer with the thing you champion.
Yes, in support of what Connor said, I would say that I came here when I was 30. I couldn't afford any place to live at all. It was a real serious problem, and I wanted to live in Dorset because my family did. Thank you.
So it's probably no easier today as a young family to buy a house in Dorset. Any other, who else would like to champion something?
I feel like of all those things up there, build community unity strengthens all the other things. And by building community unity, we communicate all the other things that are important to us. And housing is part of it.
So a task force could work together to build community unity. Okay? What other priorities would you have? Or you can reflect on those. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So building a resilient regional food community and economy is a passion of mine. I worked for 5 years building a small food systems network called Northshire Grows. It exists. There's a list of 750 people. There is a farm. There's a lot of the things listed on these things were more than nibbled at, but so what I found really interesting in seeing what rose into groups here is how building a network to grow food and farm enterprises and the ecotourism, and the last one, which is realizing the benefits of Dorset's natural lands, could in a way be an interesting amalgam of both kind of bottom-up stuff and top-down stuff, remembering that what we have here as one of our absolutely premier assets, in addition to the wonderful people that live here, is this amazing place that we are stewards of. So we want to keep it vibrant, and we want to tell its story.
So is there a regional food systems center, or are you thinking that Dorset would lead and build one for the region, or would this be the way it's been listed so far is that it would be like a Dorset food systems part, you know, like Cabot has one, and then you've got like the Northeast Kingdom all in under the Center for Niagara. So are you thinking about one or the other?
From the work that I did in the food system here, the issue of scale is it's on the one hand it's a strength, and in a lot of other ways it's a real weakness. And there are certainly things that were brought up a month ago. Transportation is a problem, the aggregation and distribution of it is a problem. But Dorset could certainly be the locus of a 15 or 16 town network. There's a Route 7 corridor that Scout and I spent some time, remember when we built the map for Ruby? So there's Bennington up to Rutland, and Route 7 is a central corridor, and so there are all sorts of ways that the network could be strengthened and celebrated.
Okay, so that kind of initiative could start here. And are you proposing adding some of these together? Someone else is nodding. She said, first she said...
In agritourism?
She said, if you were going to build a task force to build a food network to grow food and farm enterprises, it would probably also be a task force that could work to attract eco and agritourism. We wrote it as a separate idea because it's a different emphasis. It adds a lot of mission to a little task force. Beyond even building a regional food system, it also talks about becoming a tourism platform as well. So I'm going to ask how many people here think those two should be attached together? Raise your hands, and then I'll ask how many people think they should not, and they should stand separately, okay? Ready? Do you have something you want to say first? Okay, she's sure she does.
Well, it seems like there's the Dorset Natural Lands, food and farm enterprises, put food and other ways to good use that could kind of, sort of like transportation and energy are separated. That is, in my mind, a little separate from attracting new residents and affordable housing. Yet I want to vote for all of that.
Yeah, that's and we have communities where, like let me say, after doing this 70 or 80 times, everyone wants to add everything together and have a big, massive activity. And we always take the conservative side of saying, if you keep it that broad and big, well, it will be harder to get some things done. And so part of the value of setting a priority is you build momentum in one area, and then you turn your engine in the next area as you're making success. But should I follow through with that motion on the floor?
Absolutely.
Okay, so her first motion was to build network to grow food and farm enterprises with the idea that you'd be attracting visitors with eco and agritourism. And so a task force that would form would do both. How many people here think that we should attach those two together? Please raise your hands. Okay, please put them down. How many people would prefer to keep them separate? See, we're not going to count votes, but it's not clear that there's a majority for it. So other motions like that, or other things that someone would like to champion. And remember, if a task force formed on either one of these, they can take on the rest of it anytime they want. Nobody's going to be ruling over them. You know, a task force is a free group of individuals assembling at will. Yes, do you have a suggestion? Thank you.
We're just talking over here. We're just thinking increasing affordable housing and attracting new residents. That could be a really solid single activity.
Yeah, when you think about attracting new residents, maybe that doesn't really say what you're doing to attract them that much, and housing would be the fundamental way to attract new residents. So her motion is to combine increasing affordable housing with attracting new residents. How many people would vote to merge those two ideas? Please raise your hands. How many people would oppose that? In that case, there's a substantial majority that thinks those two fit together. So we'll just swing this one over and pull this so that it's not buried. Okay, but again, you know, my job is to be conservative and to basically oppose anything unless there's a majority, a clear majority to merge things. But I'd much rather hear you celebrate the thing that would have the most incisive power for the future of the community. And if you need to merge them, I'll follow your will.
When I see those two merged, and then you talk about transportation and energy, you want people not to travel far to work. Where are the jobs that are going to be close to Dorset, so you don't have to use too much transportation or energy, and that attract affordable housing and attract new residents? Where are the businesses that are going to provide the jobs? I think it needs to be someplace up there.
It needs to be someplace there. So, yes, do you have a comment on that particular?
Yes, I do. I mean, there's quite a stream of visitors every day. I call the visitors people coming from New York State or up that way who are traveling through Dorset, probably to the Manchester area. I can't say that specifically, but probably many of them are. And I suspect one of the reasons they're living out further out or in the state line area is there is no housing that meets their budget needs. I might be stepping out too far here because I haven't been involved in it, but the whole Raptor Lane project potentially, and I know this from being actively involved with Habitat, we have a tough time getting people into Habitat houses in many cases because in Manchester, even though we put together a 22-unit potential area, the land price is $40,000 to $50,000 by the time you put in all the septic and the sewer and the facility. Some of those items are in Raptor Lane already. And again, I haven't been involved, so I don't want to jump ahead of the whole thing, but potentially good solid housing could be there. Not have those people driving from Granville or Manchester or Dorset or
Why
East
do they
Dorset.
work here?
Why?
Where are the jobs here in Dorset that they don't have to go to Manchester is what my
Well,
suggestion was.
I think that's only 6 miles.
Okay. By having housing here, you'd actually be benefiting the transportation issue because people wouldn't have to travel. Did you want to say something about that? Yeah, her point, I think the larger point she's making is, you know, in terms of economic development, is there a platform that advances economic development in the region? Some of the energy work might do some of that. The transportation might do some of that. It might be a lens that you'd look at these other issues, or you could look at the idea of developing an economic development committee. And I don't know if there is such a thing in this community. Many communities have a group that works on economic development in a regular way. So I take any other motions or champions of different points on the wall.
I'll just give another vote for affordable housing. I think it's sorry, Scott, allowing the entry level folks to get in here housing wise, and then vocationally. You never know, there might be a business owner out there that if you could hire a couple of folks to do a couple of things, could be that much more productive, start to expand, start to do better. So, you know, the baseline employee is not something to be overlooked.
Thank you. Other things you would champion that are on the wall or that should be changed? Yes, sir.
I don't think there's any question that increasing affordable housing is critical, but having watched zoning changes and watching efforts for affordable housing, every proposal and task force that I've seen that takes on affordable housing while not taking on quality of existing life in the same task force comes a cropper. It's a disaster. So you have to focus on both at the same time.
Yeah, I would take that as a caution and think that hopefully you'd be on the task force to make sure that character and the fact that you don't want housing to lower the character or the quality of life in general. That you need to be looking at both those things together is important. Yes, ma'am?
I'm not sure if this applies, but I would say that we need to be very careful that none of these initiatives would cause the need to create any more nonprofits in the area because we are saturated. So I just look at a couple of them, maybe the food and farm. That we'd be really careful because we have too many 501(c)(3)s in this area.
Is there a 501(c)(3) working on food or farm issues? There's a structure.
Smoking House, Harrisburg Forest.
Okay.
There's. Are you talking about taking somebody off the tax roll?
No, just that the actual initiative would cause someone to want to create a nonprofit to address it.
So she has a caution.
There wasn't the capacity in the area to fund it.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Any other comments on the things that you would like to prioritize and suggest that your neighbors prioritize?
I would champion a theme that runs through a number of these. And that theme is the natural beauty, the history, and the special character of this place. And to that end, I would champion implementation of whatever is agreed on in that context to maintain the starting point of where we are now, not eroding it or undermining it. Maintain it instead.
Thank you. That seems well said and right in line with the theme of that goes through all those points of visions. That you're not working to undermine the character, the beauty, the nature of this region by doing any of these. In fact, you're working to enhance and do this in a way that works to benefit.
I feel very strongly about strengthening the village centers on both sides of the mountain. And I think one way to do that is to stress or to encourage mixed use within the villages, plural.
Other things that you would champion? Yes, please.
When I was talking to a realtor about the development at Raptor Lane and housing, there was one thing she said that she's finding, and that is a lot of people who have lived here for many years who want to downsize and get out of the big homes. Their kids are gone, or maybe they were snowbirds, but they still love Dorset. They want to downsize to a smaller, nice home for themselves so they have their friends and the environment that they love. So that would be something else that could be added. It's not just low income, but also in that context.
Absolutely. Thank you. So a housing committee could include that. Housing choices, that's right, not just building an affordable housing project. Any other things that you would want to champion in terms of looking at that wall? Which ones would you vote for or encourage everyone to vote for as the thing that's most fundamental, most powerful, most important for the future in terms of collective action? We all done? I guess so. Okay. So John has envelopes this time. And in these envelopes, John, remind me what's going on.
All right, you have, and I need to remind myself, you've got 3 red dots. No, you've got 3 green dots and 1 red dot. And your 3 green dots count as 1 each. And your red dot is the one you feel really strongly about, and that one counts as 3. Okay?
So all together you have 4 dots?
4 dots, that's right.
Votes, essentially.
And as we said before, you know, if you feel really passionate, you can put all of those dots on one priority, or you can spread them.
worth 3, and the other dots are worth 1 each. So that gives you 6 votes. You can put your red dot on something that you really want to see win. You can use them all on the same thing if you want. You can spread them out any way you want. But let's see how this goes, and we'll have a very good picture, I think, of what your core priorities are as you do this.
Very interesting.
Thanks very much.
Power of the dot by merging those two. Those dots mean.
Okay, can we come back to our common conversation? So the question is, do you build, in addition to a transportation and efficiency with all that you've put together in terms of core priorities in that arena, and energy and all you've put together as core in that arena, you've got 2 that rose to the top if you're going to have 2. And one of them is about increasing affordable housing and attracting new residents, and that got almost twice as many votes as anything else. So housing is fundamental. And everyone knows that housing may require zoning, because that's come up in this conversation. Housing may require looking at sewage in village centers. There's a lot that's bound up in the future of development of housing. So we don't know where that all goes. Do you have a comment on it?
Yes, I do. So I would just say caution maybe.
A caution?
If we increase affordable housing and attract residents, are we going to hurt the beauty of our town? Are we going to start cutting down? Are we going to start clearing land?
I think that the general theme through everything is that you want to do it without destroying any of your natural habitats, without undermining your precious character as a community. So this committee is, I think, hearing, whoever's going to be on this working group is hearing that loud and clear. It's probably going to be loud and clear in your vision statement by the time you're done voting on that. And then if you want to make sure that, so you should be on the committee so that you make sure that it's done in tune with the best of Dorset, right? Okay, so the other one was build community unity, and it was about looking structurally at your communications and the way that you work together to bridge divides between parts of town and build as much unity as you can between seasonal people and year-rounders and people of different, the full diversity of the community. And I guess John and I don't know for sure that you are ready to build 2 new task forces in addition to those. Recognize 2 things before we get too far with this. One is, there are 100 and some odd people at the last meeting. The fact that they're not here tonight, not all of them aren't here tonight, doesn't mean that there's not an authority from them. We're looking at their ideas. The community as a whole has had opportunities to put their ideas together. And you're not the be-all and end-all either. Next month, when we come back, everyone from the community will be invited to look at that, at the vision statements, and also to look at these directions that have been set tonight by their representatives, the people who showed up, and consider whether they want to be involved. So there'll be a big push by John to reach out to everyone in town to come back in, and we hope that each of you will help encourage others to participate in this. But the big question is, should we be really building 2 new additional task forces, or should we really concentrate on the affordable housing and attracting new residents, and the other 2? How many people think that this community can deal with both, and that there should be 2 new committees? Raise your hands if you think so. Yes.
Okay. So can you recap out of that what committees are coming out of that?
There's 2 committees. One would be on energy.
Oh, okay.
And one would be on transportation, and the energy committee would work on all the things that you've said are most high priority there.
Okay.
And so forth.
So the question is, do you want 3 committees or 4?
Yeah. Can Dorset have 3 committees or 4? And if there's 4, you've got this Build Community Unity, maybe a committee that unites all these efforts. That it has, you know, the one thing that John does is he gets the chairs of these separate committees to work together on a team, and theoretically they could be on a team that is like the Dorset development team, or whatever you wanted to call it. And so we would work with the select board, town manager, and other folks, the energy committee, between now and the next meeting to finalize that. But the big question is, should there be 3 committees or 4? Do we want to talk about it before? How many people believe there should be 4 committees? How many people think 3? So there's a majority that's saying 4. So that looks like it. So John and I are gonna put sign-up sheets in the back with these 4 committees titled. We'll have them on each side of the table. As you leave, you may want to sign up if you're interested in being on a committee. After this meeting, we'll be putting word out to the community, and we hope that you'll share that word too in every way you can to encourage other people to sign up. And John, when's that next meeting?
September 23rd, Monday evening, September 23rd.
September 23rd, we will be bringing a team of experts back. So we will bring statewide experts on housing and statewide on community unity and these other topical areas to help you knock down work plans. Yes?
Well, I'm wondering if people can sign up for more than one committee.
People can sign up for all 4 committees if you want to. Some people will want to be that active. Other people may not want to be on a committee, and that's perfectly fine too. But we'll try to reach out and get as many people in the community involved as we possibly can.
Can we make sure that there's some kind of food and childcare at the next meeting? That might help with participation.
Will community members help make sure there's food and childcare at the next meeting? John, could we work on that?
Yes, with partnership with you all, absolutely.
Yeah, with partnership with everybody, John will work on that. And thanks for saying it. There's nothing like pizza or something. You know, we don't have to have the incredible meal we had last time here. Something simple. But that was incredible. Oh, we do? Okay, well, you're in charge. You're in charge. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Going back to the communication piece, I would encourage everyone to make sure that they sign up to the e-news that generated out of the town offices and look at the town website. It's a fabulous resource. Everybody here should be on it, and you should encourage everybody that you know to be on it.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm going to turn it to John. I guess we're right at the end, right, John? We're a little early. I have to say it's a great honor to be part of this conversation. You know, we see towns set up and do things like Manchester did with Manchester 2020, where people build a vision and then they fulfill it. And it's not always done in a day. Community and economic development are kind of never done. Look at what Rutland's accomplished. It's still got challenges, but it's made tremendous progress. And the alternative to working to the benefit of your community is to see your community sink. So it's an incredible honor to be part of this process with all of you, and I know there's transformational stuff in here, and that you have the capacity as a community to do things that hardly any community in Vermont could do. So it's an honor to be part of the conversation. Turn it back to John.
Thanks, Paul. In closing, first I want to offer a few thank yous. There was a steering team that got all of this started, that came up with the name Dorset Tomorrow, that put on that great dinner last month. Do you all want to raise your hand, those of you who are on the steering team? Thank you to that team. I also want to make a special acknowledgement for the town of Dorset and your town manager and all of the staff. You know, there are great staff in towns around Vermont, but like you guys have a great team of people here, and they've already in this process been such a partner to us as we put this on. Right? You go to the town of Dorset's website right now, And there is the flyer right front and center. And there are the videos of all of the sessions right there on the website. And that kind of partnership makes a huge difference. And so just thank you, Rob, to you and your team. So when we think about what makes our state a strong place, I think so much of it is really about our small towns and the ability of our small towns to come together, to have civil conversations, disagreements, yes, but disagreements with civility, where we all come together. And what I think we see in our work is that we share this love for our place and our communities. And when we come together with that as a foundation, right, that we all sort of love our town and love this place, what happens when we share that common bond is we're willing to take some risks together as a community because we have that shared commitment to a place. There's tremendous sort of uncertainty as you take on a process like this. The truth is, there's ambition on this wall. There's some big ideas here. But what you share is a common love for this place, and what I see is a willingness to take some risks on behalf of Dorset. And for us, it's just such a privilege to be a part of that. So thank you all so much for letting us in on this conversation, and we look forward to coming back September 23rd. Thanks so much.